All right, we'll get started. There are a lot of presentations happening right now, and you guys chose to be here, so thank you for that. I think we'll have a fun room with two fantastic presentations. I want to introduce the first speaker, my friend Inbar Raz, one of my favorite speakers. I've seen him present at many, many conferences. You guys are in for a treat because Inbar usually presents bare feet, and he's wearing shoes today. So
No, I'm going to take the shoes off. It was just too cold, the air conditioning. If you guys never taken your shoes off on stage, it's really nice. It's a good Zen moment, and it helps you. It started as a joke a long time ago, and now I just do it for fun.
Well, there's your introduction, Inbar Raz.
All right, let me unlock my computer so you could all enjoy the presentation. If I remember. There you go. All right, so under the hood, the automotive challenge. Right? Okay. So, the problem. What is the problem? We all drive cars, right? And we use cars to carry the things we care about the most, right? Our family, our friends, our expensive stuff. And we also know that if a car gets hacked, because we've been reading about that a little, right? We know that something bad can happen. But what we don't know is why is it like that? I mean, we know IT security. We've all been doing that for many years. And we've come to understand why things are the way they are. But the automotive world, we're not all very familiar with. And we don't really know why we keep seeing things. Or why is a car hackable? Or why is it even connected to the internet? And what I'm going to do is try to explain to you not about one hack or another. You're going to hear a lot about that, even the talk after me. That sounds very interesting. You should stick around for it. I'm going to try to explain to you why cars are hackable and how long it's going to take until it gets fixed and what are the real risks. This is a partial list of the manufacturer firms in the car. A car is a very complex project. In fact, it's also an outsourced project. When you buy a car from, let's say, Audi doesn't make the whole car. Right? Sometimes it'll only make about 30% of it, and the rest come from these manufacturers called Tier 1 and Tier 2 and Tier 3. They make different parts, and then Audi just puts them all together and builds a car. So a car is a very complex product, okay? And it's not just that car. All new cars, and for a while back, are like that. This is just a partial list, right? You have about 30 of each. Each of the manufacturer has about 30 subcontractors. So a car is a complex product. So that's one thing to remember. As far as code goes, it is estimated today that about 100, maybe 150 million lines of code go into a new car that ships out. And just for a reference, this is more code than was needed to fly the space shuttle, right? To give you perspective. And this is something we use every day. Now, based on rough estimations, okay, you know that you have a lot of code, you also have a lot of bugs. It is estimated that the known number of bugs in a car that ships out, roughly 10,000. Okay, because you know what it's like. You have a product release date, and you have bugs, and some of them you fix, and some of them you don't, and some of them you fix later. So about 10,000 bugs in a car that you buy brand new, like we say in Israel, with the nylon wrapping. Okay, but from talks that we've had in the industry, it is estimated that the number of unknown bugs might be 5 times higher than that. Okay, bugs that the manufacturers are not aware of and will later be found by researchers or anybody. Right? So that's a lot of stuff. Okay? Now, if you ask the people that write that code, okay, 3 years ago there was a nice survey asking software development people in car companies about, code security. Did they think their code was secure? Was their company aware of it? So only 41% said secure software is a priority for my company. And that's the people that make the cars, right? It's not people like me who stand on a stage and, maybe what I say is my opinion. These are the people that work there. And 69% said that I believe that securing the applications needed is difficult or very difficult. So they know that. That's not even the worst thing. When asked, I believe that automakers are as knowledgeable about secure software development as are other industries, a whopping 72% said that no. So even the people that write the code for the cars admit that it's difficult and they don't know as much about security as they would like to know, and maybe the companies that make the products, they're not all that security aware, right? So this is 3 years ago. The numbers are probably a little bit better now, but this comes from the people that make the cars. ECUs is the electronic control unit. It's the one of the devices that is inside the car. It used to be called engine control unit, and then it became electronic control unit. And every little thing that your car does, every little functionality is controlled by one of these devices. This is from the internet. This is what a car looked like about a decade ago, a little bit more even, 2006. Each one of these boxes does something in your car. It can be a sensor, it can be an actuator, it can be a computer that calculates if you're skidding and then starts the ABS. It can be the crash control, the ABS. Every one of those is an ECU. And you can already see that 12 years ago, you had about, I can tell you, about 60 different ECUs, right? And each one of them has code. But this, and I'm sorry for the lack of details, but this is one of our customers gave us permission to use this information under restrictions. This is an estimation of what the same map looks in a brand new car that gets rolled out today, right? We have close to 200 different ECUs in various arrangements. So a car is also complex in the term that it has a very big collection of different parts, and they all need to work with each other. Now, it's true, not all of them are as complex, as sophisticated. On one end of the scale, you can find this. This is called the TPMS, Tire Pressure Measurement System. And that's that little thing that when you lose tire pressure, there's a little yellow light on your panel. Okay. Still, by the way, this thing is an IoT device with firmware and a transceiver. It can transmit and receive. Okay? So even this little thing is still an IoT device with connectivity. On the far end of the scale, you have the infotainment, or the head unit, or other names for that. And we all know that. These are multi-core, multi-CPU computers, full-fledged, like a laptop, like a tablet. They run Linux or Android, and they have a lot of connectivity. And in many times, they're connected to the internet, right? So that's a whole new different story. Now, as far as networks go, at home, you have one. It's the Ethernet, and if you have a wireless, then it's another one. But basically, that's it, and they're more or less even the same protocol. But a car has a large number of different protocols because some of them have an emphasis on latency. For example, if you crash your car, then it should take a few microseconds before the decision is made to open the airbag. Whereas if you're driving in reverse, thank you, and you're looking at the camera, then, if it takes 100 milliseconds, you're a human being, you're not going to pay attention, right? So you have up to 6 different kinds of networks, including, by the way, Ethernet, which is now moving into cars because it's very useful. It can transfer large amounts of data relatively quickly, right? Now, this is the CAN bus. CAN bus, the controller area network, is the dominant protocol and the wiring in your car. In the beginning, it was almost just this, and then things were added. Today, this is still the most common bus. And, you don't need to jump into this whole thing, but I'll just tell you that this arbitration field serves 2 purposes. One, it is sort of the user ID. When you send a message, you say, hello, my user ID is 123. But this number has significance. The lower the number, the higher the priority. So if, let's say, someone who is priority 3 is speaking, and I have an urgent message and my priority is 1, then they will stop transmitting and then I will transmit. But here's the thing. CAN bus has no security whatsoever. There is no form of authentication that lets you know that if someone just sent a message on the bus claiming that they were ID 1, that they are in fact ID 1. So if you put all the ECUs on the same bus, what we call a flat architecture, which, as IT people, we know it's bad, IT security, Same here. I could pretend to be any ECU on the bus, and no one could know the better. Now, a car also takes a long time to make. It's not just with a lot of parts, a lot of networks, and a lot of code. It takes roughly 5 years between someone starts designing a car and until it rolls out. A lot of processes to go, a lot of checks that you have to make. Like I said, it's a big outsourcing project. And there's also a lot of regulation. You can't just do whatever you want. You have regulation for software and for hardware and how things are done and built. And it's different in some countries. So this makes the whole thing, again, a very complex product. And it's not enough that it's complex. Let's look at how long it has to run. When you buy a cell phone today, then let's assume you didn't drop and break it like half of us do. It'll last, or you will use it more or less about 1.5 years before you retire it. It's not like the old Nokias. You could, hammer nails with that. It would last forever. Battery for 6 days. No. Today, you have an iPhone. Within 1.5 years, too slow. The battery is dead. Whatever. If you look at a computer, then it's slightly more, right? You can keep using the same computer 5, 6, maybe 7 years, depending on what you do. But that's a reasonable amount of time. And it gets updated. But a car, you buy a car, that car will stay about 15 years on the road. And it'll probably change owners. So you bought the car, and then somebody else is going to have the car, and then somebody else is going to have the car. And when they make that product, it needs to be really, really good because it needs to last 15 years after being released to the market. So that's a lot of requirement. And what happens if you have a problem? It's not like Windows that you can have, a remote update. With the exception of 1 or 2 vendors that allow remote software update, all the vendors, if they need to fix something, you have to go back to the shop with your car. So you lose time, maybe even money. The car shop loses time because instead of fixing people's cars and charging them, they now have to replace something that's not even their problem. And of course, the vendor needs to pay for all that. And it's a big thing, a big thing. Now, let's look at the thing as an attacker. When you look at a target, you're looking at attack vectors. And when we look at cars, anything that connects the car to the outside world, anything at all, is an attack vector. And it goes from GPS, right, which is, yes, it's only passive, but there have already been demonstrated GPS spoofing attacks to the level of controlling your navigation software. It's been done. Remote keyless entry, a research which is published, I think, last month about a team from Belgium that managed to crack and clone the key for Tesla. Okay, vehicle to vehicle and vehicle to infrastructure, communicating with the outside world. Onboard diagnostics, it's a little port that you have in the car to connect diagnostic equipment. Tire pressure measurement, again. Supply chain attack, this just came back to the news yesterday with the Chinese thing. Power line communication, if your car is electric, when you plug it in, there's data running there. You need to identify yourself and get charged and all that. And then there's the infotainment. As I said before, the infotainment itself is a full-fledged computer. It has everything you would have in a normal computer. And that brings a lot more attack vectors, right? Some of them have been, in fact, exploited by people in this room, which I will later mention, right? Wi-Fi, USB, Android apps, SD card, everything is an attack vector. Now, the biggest problem that we are seeing is that, and you see that pretty much at every other product, the market is rushing to connect things because it's cool. It's cool. You have connectivity. It's cool. You can sell it to people, and let's face it, security put aside, usability, it's really nice. I mean, not necessarily your microwave oven. I don't know what Amazon is doing there, but if you have stuff that's connected to the internet and you can control it from other places or maybe query it from your phone and know what's going on, like with your air conditioning, it's really nice. But they're first connecting and only later trying to see, okay, what are the implications? And that is a problem. Now, everything that I told you is theoretical. Yeah, I said that there is an attack on the USB. But is it just theoretical? Because in the lab, everything is possible. No, I'm going to share a few war stories of research that has been already done and published. And you will see that pretty much no one is immune. All the big manufacturers have already been hacked one way or another. Academia has started looking at hacking cars as back as 14 years ago. You can see this. Security in automotive bus systems, this is from 2004, all the way to a research from this year about electric cars and what sort of attack you can do if you drain their battery out. But the thing that changed everything was these two guys, Chris and Charlie, in a chain of two researchers published a year apart, this one in 2014 and this one in 2015. They showed that it was possible to remotely take over a car from the internet without any previous contact with the car. And that changed everything. The industry started paying attention. Other researchers started paying attention and saying, oh, this is interesting, let's do that. Where is Stefan, you here?
Yeah.
So this guy here showed that it's not just about hacking car and taking control, because people like to get this very narrow version of what the risks are. Stefan and Gabriel showed that your privacy is also at risk. They found that a car, when you sync your phone to it, the car takes all your information from the phone, your messages, your contacts, your call list, and it stays there. What if it's a rental car? Do you remember to disconnect your phone from the rental car and erase your information? If you don't, then your information is still there. And that's a big problem. And that was before GDPR. Now it's serious. And then Tesla came out. And Tesla, that's super cool. It's an electric car, the most high-tech car. And of course, it attracted attention. This research was published in 2016, I think, hacking the Tesla Model S. These guys basically took the car apart and looked for physical access. So they managed to get some control. They found some problems, but again, they had physical access. And then 2016, these guys, I think maybe some of them are in the conference because Tencent is in the conference, they actually managed to show full remote control of a Tesla car. But again, it's not just about taking control of the car, because hacking cars is difficult. This Norwegian company said something else. They said, well, if you have a Tesla and you have the app on your phone, then I can just hack your phone and then steal your car. And they did that. So it wasn't even a problem with the car as much as it was with the trust that the car was putting into the phone, right? This team from the Netherlands, I think it was, showed repeating problems that have already been found in other systems in the infotainment system of Harman that was found to be in Audi and VW. Same problems, open ports and shares, and a lot of problems that were already reported in other places. And then again, the same team that hacked the Tesla did the same thing on BMW. And the same problems keep coming up again and again. So this is no longer theoretical. Now, there are rumors in the industry, and these are just rumors, that there was a hack in the wild that got caught and it was silenced. I don't have any additional information on that. If you have it, if you're willing to share, I'd love to hear it. I won't change my presentation. But there's a rumor that this is already happening. Now, just to give you a perspective, one of the things that Argus, the company I work in, does is a pen testing service. We've had 100% success. Okay? There hasn't been a single project that we said, sorry, it can't be done. And this gives you a scale. This is not 99. This is 100% success rate. Now, you don't need special tools. You can buy this dongle for about $8.50 on the internet and connect it to your OBD2 port in your own car, and you can start seeing stuff. You can see diagnostic information. You can see error codes. You can change stuff. And maybe you know what you're doing, and maybe you don't know what you're doing. But now every person for $8 has an interface into changing things in the car. And while there are some standards for, let's say, secure onboard communication, the CISO, they're not always implemented. And sometimes, even if they are implemented, they're implemented either partially or incorrectly. So even though there are some solutions, it's still not as good as we want it to be. So now, okay, we've seen that a car is a complex product. We understand why it's going to have a lot of bugs, right? We've seen that these bugs have been researched and exploited. So this is not theoretical. And the question is, what can we do? If we look back on these things and try to draw conclusions, we will see a few things. We have published research that shows trivial problems recurring time and again. Same problem. Now, you would think that if a research on BMW shows something in, let's say, 2016, then you should not be having the same problem in another car in 2017. But it is. This is what we see. We have old and unpatched software rolling into new cars. And part of it, of course, is because you have to meet regulations, so you have to have a lot of tests. And these tests were performed, 3 years ago, because it takes 5 years to make a car. So you have outdated software rolling out with cars all the time. Now, it's not always, code execution or 0 days. Sometimes these are logical vulnerabilities. Maybe there is an access that doesn't need to be there. Stefan's research showed that you can just use a USB drive and it gets auto-mounted, and then you can just run shell. So that's not remote code execution or some 0-day basic stuff, open ports that are still there and shouldn't be there, right? So not everything requires top-notch research or exploits, and basically you can be a script kiddie and have enough ability and tools to hack a car. Now, it's already been spoken of in this conference about cybercrime and the economics of it. Let's look about the cost of operation and compare automotive to the IT security world that we're already familiar with. To find vulnerability in the IT security world, well, it's trivial and up. It depends on the platform. Sometimes it's very easy. Sometimes it's not very easy. It is said that because of all the mitigations that the IT security world has been already putting into effect, then now if a few years ago it took you a few hours to maybe a day to find an exploit vulnerability, today it can take you a few weeks, and sometimes it will even require a chain of vulnerabilities. But in the automotive, some of them are a lot easier than others. So at least for finding vulnerabilities, they're more or less the same. But the exploitation is different because the automotive world has a lot less, if any, mitigations. So where today it's becoming harder to exploit on the IT security world, exploiting a vulnerability that you found in a car is a lot simpler. And then is the return on investment. Let's say you do that. How much can you get back? So in the IT security world, right, the problem of monetization is solved. We have cybercrime, crime as a service. You can make money out of pretty much anything, from credit card information, identity information, hijacking bandwidth, CPU, storage, whatever you want. It's solved. You know how to do that. Now, with automotive, with the exception of ransomware and cryptoware, which are probably platform agnostic, there's no good way to monetize on hacking a car, right? Not a good way to do that. And even if you do find a way, if you look at the scale, so again, hacking at scale in the IT security world also solves problem. With crime as a service, you just buy a botnet, that botnet generates infections, and then you're done. You can get a few thousand infections for, a few dozens of dollars. But hacking cars at scale has been proven in research, right? Chris and Charlie showed, in fact, their research, they estimated that they could hack about between 300,000 and 400,000 cars, but the recall was 1.2 million. Okay, so that shows you this is actual scale. But we haven't witnessed any attacks on cars that were at scale. Now, at this point, usually someone raises their hands and says, no, but there was this, in the UK, some car thieves were using RFC relays and stealing 4 million quid worth of cars. Well, maybe for you and I, 4 million pounds are a lot of money, but that's not scale. Okay, if you look back at Chris and Charlie's research, 1.2 million cars, that is scale. And this is actually our luck. The inability to hack cars at scale makes it not a profitable business for cybercrime. But we are actually looking at the tipping point because it's not going to stay like this for long. The cybercrime, which is I guess you could call it the growth engine for hacking and defenses and mitigations, is sitting on the fence and just looking at us. Current type of connectivity prevents attacks at scale. Different cars use different protocols. Some are connected in one way and some in the other. You have multiple different standards. Vendors use different things. It's not easy to do it at scale. And the limited monetization, once again, it's not a good business. But this is all changing. It's changing because you start to have connected cars. So they're all going to have to speak the same language. Standardization is improving. Autonomous vehicles will create the ability to monetize on car. Because if it's autonomous and I take over it, then I can do things with it. So now there's a new monetization solution for cars, which we don't have today, right? And there's something called ECU consolidation. If today you have a bunch of different ECUs, they want to put them all into one big computer that will perform many, many functions. And then if you take over that computer, it's like taking over the hypervisor and then taking over all the virtual machines. So I'm reminding you, this is what the network looks in a car. And this is like an SMB, small and medium business. If you take a law firm or something, this is about as complicated as their network is, right? And you have to treat it as such because they probably have an IT security guy. Maybe they have a CISO. Maybe it's just the IT guy and they told him to do security, but someone is paying attention. But in cars, we don't have that. Now, the solutions already exist in the IT security world. So what we need to do is adopt them, migrate them. We can't take them as is. You can't just take some firewall from a checkpoint and just put it in the car. It doesn't work like that. You need to make the adaptations, but the problems are identical, so the principles to solve them are identical as well. And the way we look at it, the first stage is prevention. You need to be able to prevent as much as you can. Make it harder to hack the car. And then, because hackers will always succeed, that's the rule of nature, you have to understand that you are being hacked. And the next thing is you have to be able to act on it, whether it is to report it back, to fix, maybe send a remote update, because otherwise it's a car that's being hacked and no one can do anything. Now, we talk about security by design. And it's easy to say security by design, but if you don't have a security person doing that security by design, then you don't get as much security as you think. Because it takes a security person to understand and apply the principles of security. And it's okay to take a service. If you don't have someone that does your own security or that can do security by design for you, then you get somebody else to do that. And the last hope that we have is legislation. In Europe and the United States, there is legislation now that is starting to change things. It's going to force the manufacturers to be more secure, and it will try to deter hackers by introducing penalties. But it's too early to say. So, summing up. Cars are complex products with networks that are as complicated as a little business, and they need to be treated as such. And the tools to do that are already there. We just need to migrate them, make adaptations, and we're good. But there is no silver bullet. Okay? There's no one thing that will solve your problem. If any company ever tells you, my solution will prevent all hacking, so something is wrong. Don't do that. It has to be layered security. You have to detect. You have to respond. Okay? And we are, that's the image that I felt that we as the automotive security industry are the little kid with the finger in the dike. We're, by extending this gap, by keeping hacking cars at scale, not at reach, right? Making it somewhere that we're not there yet. This is how we're going to protect ourselves. Because if we don't do that, if car hacking at scale becomes possible, then the floodgates will open. Cybercrime will dive in, then we will have a lot more attacks, people will start getting hurt, and we will enter this arms race, which we already know from the security world. Thank you. So we